myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say.
Welcome along to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. Delighted to welcome back Lee Clark to the show. How are you, Lee?
Good, Steve. Great to be on again, especially after what's just been a magnificent season of the football club. So nice to be able to talk about some real good positive things for once.
God, when you look back at some of the podcasts we did, we're just doom and gloom, wasn't it? Every one we did.
I remember a lot of the stuff we're done during the pandemic and stuff like that, and we're hoping that was a thing that would keep you going. But some of the results and performances, when you think now what we were seeing at that time has come to fruition with obviously the ownership group, the management and his staff and the players all coming together, and the fans just continuing their unbelievable loyalty, and thankfully they've been repaid. They're the ones that finally their loyalty's been repaid with the product that's been put out on the pitch, but also the openness of the ownership group, the dialogue. Everyone knows, and Newcastle fans aren't silly. They know that some things have to be kept in house. You can't always talk about things. Every fan in the world would want to know every single thing that's happening behind the scenes about their football club. But in the world of football, you cannot do that. But I think this ownership group have been as transparent as possible with the fans. They've took a real genuine interest in the supporters, you know, the way they've gone on with the foundation, the food banks, etc., all that type of stuff away from the football pitch. The women's team, you know, bringing them into the club, making that a professional outfit and being rewarded with a promotion in you know, a couple of games at St. James's where they got tremendous crowds. So the feel-good factor around the club has started by them, and it's just one big happy family at the moment.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of reason for celebration. The fans, let's talk about them first and foremost. I mean, War Flags, the initiative which was started off, you know, a few years ago now. Originally, it was Gallagher Flags. It's then changed to War Flags. It's just got bigger and better, hasn't it? And you know, the rallying calls before certain games with scarves and you know, the flag displays just seem to get better and better and better. I mean, yeah, how important is that as a player? What must the players be feeling when they come out and look at the various displays match by match?
Must be spine tingling, I've got to say. It is for me, sitting in the stands watching those, you know, the War Flags, what do you call them, shows. I like the arse shows, a pre-match show, really. And as you say, the rallying calls that they put out on social media and in the public domain to get the fans there early. The noise that it's generating. I mean, what an unbelievable idea by the guys who set it up, and they've just took it to a new level. I mean, some of those displays have been just phenomenal, like mouth open time, you know, you cannot believe what you're seeing. They're fantastic, and it's just got the atmosphere. It's took it to a new level. And I can imagine the players, when they come out and see that and they hear the noise and they see the black and white and the colours from yesteryear of all the different kits that we've had being shown on flags and the different types of badges we've had, and players from past and present on display, and it's just unbelievable. It's just created something I've never experienced before, and I can imagine the players, it'll be so uplifting, and just give them just the drive to go that extra mile, and which it looks like it has, because that's what the players have done on the pitch. They've looked like they've gone that extra mile, and they've made St. James's fortress, and it's just electric. Obviously, I'm speaking from a fan's point of view now, because I'm starting to, you know, their most home games, and I've been to a few away games, but certainly when you're around the city before that and after the game, the camaraderie with people, the people with smiles on their faces, just the buzz around the city before you go into St. James's Park is just phenomenal, you know. So it's just been a brilliant season for many reasons.
Yeah, no, it definitely has. I mean, Eddie Howe came in, you know, I think there were a few raised eyebrows from people, but, you know, I think a lot of people accepted that, you know, he could be the right man for the job, and he certainly has been so far, hasn't he?
without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, possibly the people who are raising the eyebrows are the ones who, you know, there's this thing in especially in football management, it's people get excited or turned on by like the so-called big name, either in a management role or a player who's just coming to the end of his career, who's been a fantastic career. Oh, let's go and get him as the manager. Eddie was tried and tested. Never underestimate what he done with Bournemouth. They were out of business when he took over in the old 4th division, basically going out of business, going out the Football League, and without any funds, his quality of coaching came to the fore. Then he got that club from the bottom level of professional football to the pinnacle in the Premier League. And you're thinking that stadium holds about 12,000, I think. You know, and you kind of go and splash the cash in terms of big money signings. As you've got to be astute in the transfer market, and you have to be a brilliant coach, and that's what he did there. And I think people in football realised the job. And the thing with Eddie as well, because I can imagine he had massive opportunities to go back into the game. I mean, just before we end up taking him, he turned down the job at Celtic. Now, any manager who's out of work to go to a club and an institution of that size and a team that's always going to be challenging for the major trophies in that country, and with that Champions League football, for a manager who's out of work to turn that down, that shows he has his own beliefs and philosophies. And, you know, I think the talk was that he wasn't allowed to bring his trusted backroom team with him, or all of them, and he didn't want to be on board with that. These guys have been with him a long time. He trusts them, they're loyal. You can see they work well together. You know, Jason Tyndale, Simon Williston, and all these guys, Stephen Purchase, they all work in tandem together, and they do different things. And so, yeah, I think it was our game. I could see from a different point of view, because I'd come up against Eddie before as a manager as well. So obviously I'd done a lot of analysis on his teams that he managed, Bournemouth, when I was manager of Birmingham and Blackpool and Huddersfield, so at various different levels in League One and in the Championship. And his teams were always the team that played aggressive front foot football, looked really, you know, good on the eye, but played with so much pace. He loves wingers with pace, as we've got to know over the last 18 months with the players he's brought into the club and the players he's developed and helped and encouraged and made them look outstanding for us. So, yeah, I think it's easy to say now after the season he's just produced for us. But, you know, I was more than happy when he came in, and delighted that with the work. As he said, we're probably 2-3 years ahead of schedule, but we'll take that all day long.
You've managed in the game, and you know you've always had a backroom staff. You've had a number two. Tyndale got a little bit of stick towards the back end of the season. You know, light-hearted a lot of it, but some people, you know, like to stick their nose in, and yeah, you shouldn't be standing there in the technical area with Eddie. And you know, what did you make of all of that? And what do you like when you're managing? Do you like to be the main man in the technical area, or what did you make of all of that?
No, when you're a manager, you ultimately, the way I used to use it was I had the ultimate and final decision. But if any of my members of staff, for example, on a match day, seen something that they weren't happy with, they could either come out and push that message across themselves. They can relay that message to me for then me to speak. There was no problem. I liked my staff to make contributions. I like my staff to make me aware. And as I said, Jason gets involved on the touchline with the stuff that Eddie doesn't like. It's not Eddie. Eddie doesn't try and be someone he's not, and Jason doesn't. But what they do is they complement each other. You know, good cop, bad cop. If there's any altercations to be had, Jason's there. He's alongside his manager, and his manager knows if there's anyone. You know, it's like your territory, innit? That technical area. That's your area, and no one can come in there and start bullying you around. Then Jason's like as you will know, the job with Jason's like the doorman, and he just gets everyone out the way, and or he causes a little few problems themselves. So I think, as I said at the start there, I think all his backroom staff, they complement each other in different ways. If you had a backroom staff where they're all the same type of person as you, it's not going to work. You need different type of characteristics. You know, you need different types of people, and as I said, I think if you're a manager who has trust in your staff, you allow them, because you can't see everything. You know, the manager, it's so difficult sometimes, you know, when you're at pitch level. So that's why sometimes I used to enjoy watching the game from up in the stands, because you get a completely different view. Sometimes when you're down at pitch level, and for example, if you don't go out in the technical area and you sit in your dugout, you can miss a lot of things that are going on, because as a manager, you're not always looking at what's happening directly straight away. With say, for example, if someone's on the ball, you're looking at the movements of the other players, you're looking at where the spaces can be had and the analysis that you've done. You know, all the work that you've done on your analysis, where you've said to the team, you know, for example, their left-hand side may be the weakest part. Is that what's showing up in the game? If they've changed that team, have they changed that tactics, etc., etc., etc. So, yeah, it's all this type of stuff. So you just got to, you know, go from there.
Were you surprised at the criticism Newcastle received for the what people call game management now, other people call time wasting? Were you surprised that Newcastle were attacked? Because Lee, I've watched Newcastle play since 1984. This has been part of the game since you started off. It's
game management. You hit the nail on the head. Mm-hmm. And every single team, whichever era you look, have done it. If a team's winning and they're going into injury time, they manage the game. They slow the game down. And of course, if the shoe's on the opposite foot, you're going to have to, you know, if you're losing, for example, the other team will time waste and you get frustrated by it. That's the name of the game. But that's the way I seen it was coming from managers of teams who were worried about us. And as Big Sam rightly said, well, who brought these stories into the public domain? Liverpool and Jurgen. Well, do they not time waste? Of course they do. I've watched a lot of their football because of my son. Man United, Eric Ten Hag. Do they not time waste? Of course they do. So every single manager will tell that team going into the final stages, if you're winning, manage the game. And it's happened since I've been alive. It's happened in every team I've been involved in. It's happened in every era I've been involved in, whether I've been a watching supporter or taking part as a player or a manager. And it's just nonsensical. It's just managers trying to. It was probably the last thing that they could say about us, because you couldn't say anything negative about Newcastle, so you had to come out with something stupid that really backfired. And so yeah, it's everything that was said, you take it as a compliment. And as Eddie's rightly say, we're not here to be friends, we're here to compete. So you know, it's like I said, you fight for that badge on your chest. You fight for that club that means everything, and that's what we've got. We've got a manager and staff and a group of players who are giving everything and fighting for, you know, that jersey and that crest. And long may it continue. Looking back at last season, who was your player of the season, Lee? Well, this has got to be probably the most difficult question this season I've had. I've been asked numerous times since the season finished, and this is not sitting on the fence, because I will eventually pick one. But I think you've probably got about 7, 8, possibly more contenders. Mm-hmm. You couldn't disagree if it was given to Nick Pope. You couldn't disagree if it was given to Dan Burn. You couldn't disagree if it was given to Sven Botman. You couldn't disagree if it was given to Bruno, to Joe Linton, to Willock, to Callum Wilson, to Isak, to Almiron, whoever. But the person I'm giving it to was, not only has his performances individually been superb, his leadership skills, his ability both in terms of organisation, being an extension of the manager, it will be, you know, he has been phenomenal. And if you think that the price that we paid for him, I think was in the region of about, was it 15 million in today's market as a snip? I'm going for Kieran Trippier. I think he's been absolutely outstanding. To be honest with you, when we did sign him, I didn't think we'd get that type of caliber of player that we got when we did get him at the time, because you remember when dire straits in that January window, in the bottom of the table, fighting relegation. But he must have been sold the vision, and you know, he'd obviously experienced as a visiting player St James's before, but he's just been absolutely phenomenal in both attacking and defensive but also the leadership that he's brought, the calmness. You know, when there's been little incidents or whatever, you know, certain things happening on the pitch, he's there, he's calming people down. He's been sensational, and he heads it for me a list of anyone from 9 or 10 players who could have easily take Player of the Year.
Yeah, definitely a difficult job to pick out one in particular. I guess most improved has to be Joe Linton. I mean, the turnaround in Joe Linton League has been phenomenal.
I'd done an interview on national radio not long after the season finished, and I said the easiest way to compare the turnaround in this player was when he was playing as a striker or a wide attacker, not as a winger, because he wasn't being played as a winger the way that Eddie's used him as a wide player, but as a wide attacker. He was probably going to go down as one of the club's worst ever signings, and that's not being too harsh. I think everyone would agree with that. And I think the transformation, you've got to put him up there with now seeing he's one of the club's best ever signings. And that for me is the simplest way to explain the transformation in this player. He's gone from, he's now a powerhouse of a midfield player, a modern day central midfield player, box to box, strong in the air, aggressive on the floor, powerful with the ball, can dribble with it, can play good passes. A brilliant story, an absolutely brilliant story for any young player to show. You know, you can, if you're prepared to work and stick at the game and have the hunger and determination, you can turn things around for you. Joe Linton has to be the story for everybody.
Yeah, I think special mention Almiron as well, who, you know, has never let us down with effort. Always had a smile on his face, but never really managed to find the back of the net. But he went on this amazing goal-scoring run last season, didn't he?
You know what? That you probably hit it on the head. When he first come, he was a player who gave absolutely everything, but didn't look like he was a player who particularly understood the game from a technical and tactical point of view. And you can see he's been coached unbelievably well by Eddie and his staff, and that's made him progress to the player he has been. He's been brilliant with the ball. He's been brilliant without it. Like you say, he plays with a big smile on his face. He looks like he enjoys his football. He's, as you said, he's added goals. His finishing has improved a hell of a lot as well. His assists, his numbers have just gone through the roof, really, in comparison. And it's another example of the manager getting the best out of another individual. And you can put many players in that. You can put Fabian Shaw. You can put Sean Longstaff. You know, Sean's improved so much. Eddie's brought out the strong points in Sean's game. You know, what he had as a young player, but that was getting stifled. Possibly with a lack of confidence, maybe. But Eddie's doing a lot of good things. You know, the players that were already here. We talk about the signings, and he's never made any mistakes in the recruitment side of the game. He's been brilliant in his recruitment, but what he's also done, the players that were already here, he's improved them so much as well. So that type of improvement, and tied in with excellent signings, has given us the basis of a brilliant season.
How much influence has Bruno had on all of this? Because the coaching by Eddie Howe's been superb, no doubt about it. He's got the best out of some of these players, Joe Linton, Almiron, but it makes a difference, doesn't it, when you're bringing in somebody who is clearly a world-class player into that midfield?
Top draw. Absolutely top class. A wonderful, wonderful player, and someone who seems to love playing for the club and loves playing for these fans. And there's a relationship building between him and the fans. They love him, he loves them. He's just an unbelievable player. He's another one who's modern day in terms of, I think he got done a disservice when he was brought in and people said he was a holding midfield player. Then he went on that little run when he got us a few important goals, when he was breaking the lines, and he's always looking for that final pass with either foot. He's got great way to pass, long or short. He's aggressive. He works extremely hard. He's a top player. And the thing that we're going to have to deal with now with our players is them being linked with the other elite clubs around Europe, and that's great because it means we've got top players. But what Eddie and the ownership group they're creating a culture here where hopefully next season, us being in the Champions League, won't be a one-off. It'll become quite regular for us. And it means that the top players will want to stay with us and want to come to us as well. So I've got no issues when you see Barcelona linked with Bruno. I mean, I don't know how Barcelona keep getting linked with all these players, mind, with the money issues they have, and we're having to, tread very carefully with financial fair play. But Barcelona must have their own rule book. I don't know, but so yeah, but that doesn't fear me. I love it. I love it because it means that we've got top players, and I think we're in a position now where we can keep those top players as well.
We didn't get off to the greatest of starts, but then, we went on this fantastic run. When next blip, unfortunately, came when we went to Wembley. And I mean, that semi-final at St James's was fantastically. To see Newcastle get over the line in the League Cup for the first time since '76. All hopes on bringing that elusive trophy back to St James's, but then sadly we just hit that little rut, which tied in with the Wembley appearance. And great day out, but ultimately not the result we wanted.
Yeah, a phenomenal lead up to the game. Great day beforehand. Had at Wembley, seeing the black and white and the stadium the way it was, superb. The atmosphere. As you said, I think it probably fair in saying the spell that you're talking about was a blip in terms of the results, and I think our general performances weren't that bad. But I just think we'd lost the knack of, we were missing good chances. We weren't being clinical like we had done previously and like we did return to after the final. We weren't being clinical enough. And that coincided with the final. And because I was doing the commentary for national radio at the time. So I thought in terms of between the two boxes, we're more than matched Man United. But obviously we give, from our point of view, 2 not so good goals, and we didn't take our chances when they come. And that was our spell during that period. I think we had a couple of 0-0s in there and stuff like that. So, yeah, that was unfortunate. But you know what? I walked away from that game thinking, this is, we're not going to have to wait that long again for this to happen. This is, we'll be back sooner rather than later to be challenging for one of the big cup competitions in English football, and next time that we've got a group of players who don't have to fear anybody.
Did the qualification for the Champions League, do you think that made up for the cup final defeat?
I think the response of the players and the manager, because there was obviously, is this Newcastle season coming off the rails a little bit? They've lost the final. Can they hang on to the top 4 positions? I think the response of the manager and the players was phenomenal. It's easy to feel sorry for yourself and think, one chance of silverware is gone. But what they did, they regrouped. And I think they probably used that as a motivation. You've seen the players at the end, they were devastated with the loss, very emotional. And you think, they wanted to do something very special. And, the response after the cup final was superb. And to think we're talking about the club being in the Champions League after the despair we were going through 18 months earlier is just unbelievable, really. So I would got to say, from a selfish point of view, I would have took us dropping out the top 4 and winning the Carabao Cup, because I want to see that elusive trophy being won. And the reason I could say that the way I've said it is because I do know that I can see the future only going on an upward trajectory as well. So if we hadn't made the Champions League this year because we had to sacrifice one or the other and we won the cup, I could see us challenging to get the Champions League again next season. But we've done what we hadn't done since '69 and won that, first bit of silverware. So I would have took that, definitely. But
yeah,
but it's not bad. We're in the Champions League. I'll take that.
Yeah, me too. Definitely. There was, lots of great games last season. I know it's difficult to pick one out, but is there a game where you were at home or away where you went, wow, that was special?
One for me because at the time we were very similar positions in the league, and they were up there and wanting to break into the top 4, and we were there. And if they had beat us on the day, could have made that margin a bit shorter as well for them to catch us, was the Tottenham game at home, when we absolutely blew them away in the first. I've never seen an opening 30 minutes like it. It was just phenomenal. If there's any example of what Eddie had done with that team, that was the game, because I've never seen a start like that. The way we come out the traps, that front foot aggressive high press, and Tottenham didn't have any idea what to do. No idea they couldn't handle the press. And then when we broke on them, they couldn't handle the pace of the team, the numbers we attacked in, and they were just blown away. So yeah, and because Tottenham, I think if they had beat us that day, I think they might have went with about 2 points of us at the time. They weren't playing particularly well. I didn't think they were a great team, but they were up there in the top end of the table somehow. But we just absolutely smashed them. And I was like sitting after 30 minutes when it was 5-0, and it was like, what have I just witnessed? It was like, that is unbelievable. That is top level football played at its very, very best. And I think that if it hadn't already happened, that performance with it being on live television as well made the rest of the country sit up and think, wow, these are going to be a force to be reckoned with.
Okay, we're halfway through the show. Time for the ads. A big thanks to all our sponsors: Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's sauces, which are handmade in Cumbria. Their website is mrvickies.co.uk. If you want to contact the guys, email info@mrvickies.co.uk or telephone 01768 210 102. Big thanks to New Workwear. They are an agile and dedicated workwear provider launched in 2018. For more information, go to their website, newworkwear.com. Big thanks, as always, to Media Arts for the help with the video side of things. If you want to support the channel, hit the subscribe button, become a subscriber today. Hit the thumb up under the video, which likes the video, and click share to share to your other social media. Click join if you want to become a member of the channel for as little as $1.99, or take a one-off payment for the cult membership. You can get in via this QR code if you've got a smartphone, or look for membership pack on the website, nufcmatters.com. What do you get for your one-off £25 payment? You get a scarf, a pen, and a cup, and a membership card, and entry into the monthly draw. Don't forget, if you want a car sticker, all you need to do is subscribe to the show and then email John at NUFC Matters, and he will post you a free car sticker out. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast providers. And we also support the food bank on this channel. NUFCfansfoodbank.co.uk is the virtual matchday bucket where you can make a virtual donation 365 days of the year. The new Alan Shearer raffle is underway. 150 tickets at £1 a ticket. You could win a limited edition signed Alan Shearer ball from the 260 dinner. Enter now at nufcmatters.com. We've got a few events coming up. August the 5th sees Gavin Peacock at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets are £10, and you can get them now from nufcmatters.com. Our Christmas event takes place on the 7th of December at the Tyneside Irish Centre, and that's an evening with Frank Clark. Tickets are £15 and available from nufcmatters.com. Finally, Waddle, Keegan, Beardsley and Friends, the class of 84, is on at the Town Theatre and Opera House on Westgate Road in Newcastle on Thursday, January the 23rd. Tickets are now available from the Town Theatre and Opera House.co.uk or telephone 0844 2491 000. That's the box office telephone number 0844 2491 000. 68 goals last season, Lee. Have you got a favourite?
I have. Difficult once again. There's some outstanding goals, some outstanding team goals, individual ones, but the one that sticks in my mind and always comes to the fore when I get asked this question is Miggy's goal down at Fulham. Typical coming in off the line, great little, which became a ploy that we used over the course of the season. A great little 1-2 with Bruno, who's dinked the ball over the top, and then Miggy, left-footed volley in the opposite far top corner. That's a difficult technique to keep that under control when you're on the run as well. And that technique was superb, and that was an amazing goal. And yeah, that's the one that keeps coming to mind whenever I get asked the question. I just thought the little bit of movement, as I said, which came a real powerful point of our attacking play. You know, whoever was coming in off the line playing a little 1-2 with Bruno, because as I said earlier, his way to pass is superb, and then to, you know, keep the focus and keep the ball under control the way he did with the volley, brilliant.
You've already picked out Kieran Trippier as your player of the season. That back four, though, almost ever present this year, with obviously the superstar in the making, Botman in the middle, alongside Fabian Schär, who had fell out of favour under the previous manager and previous ownership, and Big Dan Burn. He's from Blythe, a good old local lad, filling in a left back originally, but then making that slot his own. And Big Nick Pope, we've got Popey in the middle. I mean, it's been an amazing turnaround. I mean, you've done some talkings recently where you've just, I think you and a few of the other entertainers have said, God, if only we had that back four behind when we were playing.
We just used to leave poor Darren Peacock on his gun. Like the Alamo for him and the goalie taking on the rest. Listen, as you said, and you know, they broke records on the number of clean sheets, they broke records and with the best defensive records, etc., over the course of the season. And it's been a powerful part of the team. Yeah, we've had exciting, fast flowing, aggressive, you know, high pressing football, but we've also had a real strong defensive unit as well. And when that's been breached on the odd occasion, we've had an outstanding goalkeeper who's been another one who I think was 10 million we got from Burnley. I mean, in today's market, wow. If you got to put up, if for whatever reason the worst come to the worst, might to put them up for sale, I think you might just stick another note on that 10 million, do you? And that's sort of 100 million. That's not going over the top. I don't think there's been many better, if any, in the Premier League this season than him. But like you say, the back four, and I think you make an important point. It's hardly ever had to be changed. There's been a consistency. I mean, who would think high-level elite football, challenging at the top end of the Premier League, and you've got a 6'7" left back? You'd think he'd be getting run ragged by the quality of wide players in the Premier League. And you can count on one hand, minus a couple of fingers, the times where you've come and thought maybe the wide players got the better of him. He was outstanding. And this comes from a man who I obviously managed, Big Dan at Birmingham, and played as a left-sided centre-half for me. But there's a kid who is living the dream. I always talk about that when I talk. I mean, you have these talks and people ask us, what was it like? And that's basically, I lived the dream. And you can see that with Dan, you know, it's oozing out of him. He probably thought this opportunity had passed him by about coming to Newcastle. So when he got the chance, and he's just, you can see with every game, he's thinking, I'm going to grasp this opportunity. And he'll be pushing the message to the players as well. You know, him and Mark Gillespie, Paul Dummett, Sean Longstaff, the local lads will be saying, you know, they could make themselves immortal, to be honest, in terms of them being the group of players that can end this this trophy situation. So, you know, they'll be pushing that message to them. So, yeah, as you said, it's just Botman, to think where he could be in another 4 or 5 years' time. He's only young, could be phenomenal player. Fabian Schär, massive improvement since Eddie's took over in terms of his defensive part of his game. He always had the ability. He was a ball-playing centre-back. And as we've said, Trippier has probably been the player of the season. The odd times we've had to change, and Jamal Lascelles has come in, done a real steady job. Target, I like him in any way, so you never have any issues if he has to come in. So I think we have real competitive players in the background that can keep that defensive organisation and unity. And I think it helps when we play with a high press, where you've got your attacking players who are starting the defensive work with such high press, with such determination and aggression, that allows the back four to get in good positions higher up the pitch, and to make us a strong defensive unit.
Another player that's really caught the imagination, not just of Newcastle fans, but other people who love watching the Premier League, is Alexander Isak. Big fee paid for him, came in, made a first impression, massive first impression on a big stage at Anfield. Unfortunately for us, picked up a little injury, international duty, then got concussion when he'd made his return. But we've seen some flashes of brilliance, and I think you've got to highlight that particular run and dribble which set up Jacob Murphy at Goodison. Amazing talent, and this kid is only young, and he's only going to get better as well.
Absolutely. You talk about that run. There was some other bits of skill. He showed fantastic ability and technical work, playing both as a striker and as a wide player on that left-hand side. And as you say, that run at Goodison was just Peter Beardsley-like, wasn't it? It was when went on one of his mazes and would either score or set up a simple goal, just like Alexander did for Jacob there. It was that, you know, and no, I think he came for a big fee, but he looks a great buy, even at that such big money. As you say, just a shame he spent a lot of time out with the injury. But maybe that helped him settle. Maybe give him an opportunity to just take a seat back and get to know the club, get to know, you know, what was required, see what the manager's plans were for him. And that might have helped him in a strange sort of way to settle in. Because when he come back on, and Eddie's got to take a lot of credit for this because he didn't rush him straight back into the starting 11. He eased him into the games, and a 30-minute cameo here, then a half a game or whatever. And he didn't do it to the detriment, because I think he played him in the first half in the FA Cup defeat at Sheffield Wednesday, where because the team hadn't played particularly well, it could have easily been, I'll keep Alexander on to try and get back in the game. But because we've got a process to get this player back at peak fitness for a certain time, they stuck to the principles, and that shows you that's another sign that Eddie has the respect of his backroom team, so his sports scientists and his medical department, who've probably informed him this is the best way to go with Alexander. He stuck to those principles, even, you know, when it could have been easier for him to leave him on to try and, you know, nick that result that day. So, but a brilliant player, exciting. He's sure he can play with another partner in Callum as well. You know, I was always looking forward to that. I think the first time Eddie really had a go at it was the second half at Wembley. And as you say, we weren't particularly firing on all cylinders then, but when he's done it later on in the season, it's worked really well, and it's been a game changer for us. But isn't it great when sometimes you can start with Alexander and have Callum on the bench, or vice versa? That's what you're talking about. That's how you judge how good we are. You look at that bench and you think, he can come in and change the game, not make us weaker. He can come in, not make us weaker, and change the game. And we have 5 or 6 of those on the bench. You know, that's why I think there'll not be a lot of signings coming in this summer, but I think there could be between 3 and 5 top quality ones where you go, by the way, we've got 20 players now that we can call upon. And whichever 20 Eddie decides to put in that starting 11, it's going to be as strong every single game. Nobody's going to weaken us. So that's the position you want to be in as a manager.
Okay, where would you strengthen then, Lee? You're saying, you know, between 3 and 5. I think that's probably about right. I think everybody, you know, who I've spoken to would say that's what we need. Obviously, depends who leaves, which we'll come to. But where would you strengthen at this moment in time?
Well, I'd probably say it's probably changed, Steve, because obviously we're now competing in Champions League, and we've got to go. You want to go in there and you want to give yourself. You want to make yourself competitive. You don't want to go in there and not be competitive in that group, whichever group we get drawn in. So you're looking at the elite players who have Champions League experience. Do we probably need another centre-back? I would probably say we probably do. You know, it depends on... It all depends on what happens with some of the fringe players we've talked about as well. So if Jamal Lascelles, for example, was to come in and say to Eddie, listen, boss, I've done it for you for 18 months, 2 years. I've been your captain without being on the pitch as much as I want. I've led the club, and he's led it brilliantly. He's showed how to be a leader when you're not always involved. He's behaved impeccably. He's the first to celebrate with the lads. He's right in amongst it. I've bumped into him at the stadium. He's really positive. So he's been a brilliant example. But, you know, sometimes it gets to the stage where you go, I've got to be playing more. Do you know what I mean? And he might think that, and Eddie done this with John Joe Shelby, didn't he? Didn't really want to lose him, but John Joe was getting the opportunity to get a longer term contract at Nottingham Forest. And Eddie came out and said, I don't want to let him go, but I've got to think of the person as well. I think he's that part of his man management, and he's very much a player's manager as well. He sees the empathy side of that. Do we go for... I know Eddie loves having pace in the wide areas. With Anthony Gordon coming in January, and we haven't seen the best of Anthony, but I'm sure a full pre-season, he'll be flying next season. He's, you know, because he played at such a young age at Everton and so many games, we forget how young Anthony Gordon is. And it was a bit of a traumatic departure for him from Everton. It was his hometown club. They were really in dire straits. He was taking a bit of flack from his own supporters. You know, you've seen some of the incidents on social media when he got his car chased down the street, etc., which is never nice for anybody, but especially for a young, homegrown player. He left under a little bit of a cloud, so maybe that affected him a little bit more than people thought. He comes across as a real intelligent guy. He speaks really well on the TV. So hopefully that performance and goal he got in the last game down at Chelsea just lets him go away in the summer, gives him a little bit of confidence. I think he's got some under-21 games to play, and maybe that can help him as well. Come away from the club, go and represent England and do well there. A little bit of a break, and I think we'll do well out of him. But I think Eddie might be in the market for another wide player. I just had a conversation this morning. Does Alan Saint-Maximin stay or go?
What did he make of his social media post? I mean, he's the master of social media. There's no doubt about that. At the end of the season, he does a video on a treadmill wearing a Newcastle shirt, running, and then subsequently this week he puts out this long statement, which in some ways could be interpreted as a goodbye, but in another way it could be interpreted as I'm going to knuckle down in the summer and I'm going to give it one last go. But what do you think? Where does his?
I think that was. I haven't read the full statement. I've just seen snippets of what he put on his social media, and it came across like he was a player that had held his nerve during the course of the season because he didn't want to be the player who maybe upset the dressing room because of his own personal position. But now, at the end of the season, he can speak out and probably say, I'm probably not that player who wants to sit on the bench for 50% of the season or possibly longer. He's seeing the lads that are playing in his position playing really, really well. Eddie and I would be the same. I wouldn't want him to go because if you've got a Saint-Maximin on the bench, from a selfish point of view as a manager, you would love to have that type of armoury to maybe put on for the last 30 minutes of the game that you want to go and you need to go and win, etc. It's fabulous to have a player of his ability on the bench, but from the player's point of view, he's thinking, I'm really too good to be sitting on the bench. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not arrogance. It's just, you know, it's the self-belief you've got to have, and I'm sure Saint-Maximin has that. And another thing that what can come into this category with Alan Saint-Maximin as well, you do know there'll be plenty of suitors out there who will pay big money for him. And that big money could be reinvested into the squad and help us with the FFP as well. So that's another thing that you have to weigh up in all this. You've got to take the player's point of view. You've got to take the manager from his selfish point of view. He'll not want Saint-Maximin to go, but he'll understand that he wouldn't be surprised if Saint-Maximin knocked on his door and said, listen, just like I've said about potentially Lascelles, ultimately when you're a professional footballer, you want your club you're playing for to do well. But come the end of the season, like any manager, like any fan, you as a player, you assess the season and you think, right, what did I do well? What did I do not so well? Why did I not play enough games if I didn't? Is that going to change? And then you make a decision. You go and speak to the manager or however the way they do it. And my day was go and speak to the manager. Gaffer, what's the plans for me next season? I'm a bit frustrated. I didn't play enough games last year. This, that, and the other. You have those conversations. You know, he might be that way, but then Eddie might say, well, unfortunately, Alan, you're under contract. You're staying with us. So then you've got this predicament. Does Alan then keep his focus and his mentality like it has been? It's obviously been very good behind the scenes. There's been no sense of any fallout, or there's never been any rumour, or I've never heard any rumours, anything that he hasn't trained particularly well. I've never heard anything like that about any of the group, to be honest. So it's a real conundrum, the Saint-Maximin one for me. It is a real conundrum. And me, obviously, having my managerial hat on, I don't want him to go. I don't think he'll start a lot of games, I've got to say, but I think he is a manager. when you're writing that team sheet out and you go down onto your substitutes list, or when you're turning around during the game and thinking, we're not particularly firing on all cylinders in the attacking play. How can that change this? You turn around, you've got a Saint-Maximin there. Oh, not bad, is it?
Yeah.
But the player won't see it that way. Do you know what I mean? He's like, oh, I've trained ever so hard for 4 or 5 days. I'm on the bench again. I'll do the same next week. Will I be on the bench again? So it's a difficult one. It's a real difficult one. I wouldn't be surprised either way. I wouldn't be surprised if he stayed, and I wouldn't be surprised if he was sold for a substantial amount of money, and that's helped us to reinvest in the squad. But that does then definitely opens it up for me to get another wide player. I'm going to be greedy and say, give away another goal scorer. We've got 2, but we want 3. Eddie's that good at his tactics. He can play with 3 centre forwards. Definitely bring it back to the entertainers era.
Definitely. Tom Dixon on Twitter does ask, can you ask Lee if there was one player that's available, a realistic player, who would you like to sign?
Well, in terms of realism, I'm thinking if we're dealing in the elite market, because that one of the other players' areas I was going to say was possibly central midfield. And when you're dealing in the elite market, you're probably looking at the 75 to 100 million mark. I think, is that fair to say, when you're dealing with players? He's just won a European trophy last night. Go and get Declan Rice, eh?
Mm-hmm. A lot of money.
Or let's bring Harry Kane and he can break Shearer's record at St. James's. That would be a story.
I had a lot of tweets when I said I was going to be doing this pre-record with you as well, Lee, asking how Bobby's doing, and also saying, now that Newcastle have got a decent structure, would he ever come back? I think he's going to cost Newcastle a bit of money if he does come back at some point. Listen,
the first part of the question, he's had a season beyond our wildest dreams. He's been involved in the first team over 10 times. He's made his Premier League debut. He's made his Carabao Cup debut. He's it's 17 years of age for both of those. When Bobby decided on the Liverpool move, I certainly didn't expect that, I've got to say. Even though the manager has he has this persona where he gives young players a chance. There is a pathway, but I would be saying I wouldn't tell you the truth. I said at 17, he would be in the first team. So it's been good. He's went back and played a lot of games at under 21 level, which at 18 years of age is still a big thing to do. And he's had various different experiences. So, for example, he played against Bournemouth on the Saturday in the Premier League, and there was pictures of him celebrating Luis Diaz's goal with Virgil van Dijk, and these were like monsters standing next to him, and Mo Salah. And then I went down to Vale Park 2 days later to watch him play in the FA Youth Cup, and he was playing with some schoolboy lads, 15 and 16-year-old, and it was like, wow. And I was like to Bobby, oh, who's that? He looks tiny. And he's like, oh, Dad, he's only 15. He's a good player. And it was like talking about. So that was the experiences he was having. 1 minute he's with these international superstars, and who are like, the athletes that are playing in the Premier League now, the unbelievable specimens. And then 2 days later, he's with these little young lads who are just starting their journey, So he's played obviously in the under-19s, in the Champions League for Liverpool, and in the International Cup, and then majority of the season with the 21s. So it's been good for him. He's looking forward to the new season, because what's changed now, he's classed as a homegrown player for Liverpool on their squad sheet, so he can now be included in their Champions League squad or Europa League when they compete in Europe. Whereas last season, because he hadn't been at the club for 2 years, he couldn't be included in the Champions League squad or European competition squad. So that's changed now for him. About coming back, listen, I've said it before, it would have been a dream come true. There's not many done it, father and son, to play for Newcastle United. Who knows? Did anyone ever think Alan Shearer would come back to Newcastle? They'd probably say no. But that's how did that materialise? because Sir John and Kevin Keegan turned the club around, made it a very attractive proposition for the best players, and Alan decided to come home. So I've been in this game for too long to say never. You never know what's around the corner, and let's see.
There's always one. Can you ask Lee what his favourite Buster Walker is? The 39 or the 12?
12. 12.
The 21 was handy if you were going to Foss, where he says. Anyway, there we go. Somebody with a bit of local knowledge. Newcastle in the Champions League next year. What are the first team going to have to do to get into the right mindset? Is there a good way to prepare for European games, Lee? You've had to do this.
Well, it's a completely different challenge, and you even see it now with the clubs like Man City and Inter Milan, the two finalists this year. If I think back to watching their group matches, there's this different type of mindset where, in terms of, you very rarely go away from home and dominate the ball in Europe. It's about, like we've just talked about, having a strong defensive organisation, having a great structure. But when you do have the ball, creating opportunities and then taking those opportunities. Because obviously, when you think of the potential teams that we could come up against in our group, you have to make those opportunities count, because they'll be few and far between. But at home, it's the adrenaline rush is completely different, because the music that comes on and all the build up to the game, and you want to play. It suits Newcastle on the front foot. So, and it's sometimes looking at the bigger picture. If you remember to Sir Bobby Robson's days, I think, did we lose our first three in the group?
Yeah, we did.
And we ended up qualifying. There was crazy nights that we had after that. I remember watching that on the TV down in London when I was playing for Fulham. I was jumping around the room like a lunatic. But so it's about quickly getting rid of the disappointment if a result doesn't go your way. Because if there's any example for Newcastle and its fans, it's that era when we lost the first three games but still qualified. So it's just having that mindset and realising that, probably at this elite level, any kind of serious mistake will get punished. You don't get a second chance, so you have to be really focused and really channeled in on what your tactics are and how the game plan is, the manager and his staff want to go about.
Yeah, going to be exciting times, Oli. I bet you cannot wait, just like me, to hear the Champions League music at St James's Park and see what War Flags come up with.
Unbelievable. It is. You're right. I mean, we're in June, but it's something that it's whetting your appetite. You're getting excited about it already, and I'm the same about what display War Flags are going to produce for that first night of Champions League football, because the displays, as we've talked about already, have been phenomenal, and I'm sure they've got some unbelievable one up their sleeve and working on it now as we speak, ready to welcome whoever it is for that first Champions League night at St James's.
Yeah, going to be exciting times. So, what about you, Lee? You mentioned you've been to a lot of the games, home and away. Management still something you want to get involved with? Or are you just happy watching Bobby's career and watching Newcastle progress?
I'm really enjoying what I'm doing. I'm enjoying going to the matches, being a Newcastle fan again, full circle from the early 80s when I first started to watch. And obviously, going to see Bobby play at various different levels and keeping him in touch with his career, how it's going. I'll never say never to the football management. I'm not actively pursuing anything. I'm really enjoying what I'm doing, and just love being a football fan. It's a lot more stress than being a football manager. So, but you never know. You never know if something... Football's so strange. You think that's the end of something, and then all of a sudden someone contacts your club or an agent and you think, could fancy that. But I've got to say, I'm a bit lost at the moment. Obviously, last night I watched West Ham, but at the moment I'm a bit lost because the football's starting to dwindle now. I like to watch football at all different levels, and I've watched a lot of it on the TV and obviously live football. So after Saturday night, the Champions League final, I don't know what I'm going to be doing for a few weeks. But in terms of myself, as I said, there isn't something on the horizon. But I'll never say I'll never take another opportunity, because it's my drug. I love football. As I said, I love watching it. I loved when I could play it. Them days are well and truly gone. But let's see.
Just a quick one on the owners at Newcastle. They've been in and got their feet under the table a while back now. But how's the relationship going between the club and the ex-players?
Superb. Couldn't have gone any better. They've welcomed us with open arms. You're seeing many of the ex-lads now going around doing various different hospitalities, doing the lounges, even just coming to the game themselves. I've never heard of any one of the ex-lads who've been turned down for a ticket, which was the complete opposite under the previous regime. Nobody could get a ticket. And the new ownership group have been fantastic. Welcomed us with open arms, and couldn't have done any more for us. So we're delighted with that, and it can only get better and stronger, that relationship. We just want to be there to help the club in any way we can and support them. We weren't allowed to do that for a period of time, but it's completely flipped on its head and changed dramatically.
Great news, Lee. Great to have you back on. We'll get you back on hopefully before the start of the new season. But enjoy your summer. Thanks very much, Lee Clark, for taking part in NUFC Matters.
Cheers, Steve. All the best.
We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email john@nufcmatters.com to arrange today.
Mr. Stevenson.